Listen up, I'm about to get dope.
What's going on? It's time for another episode of Too Hard for the Radio, transmitting from the future-free state of Greater Idaho. I am the one-armed madman, and with me tonight is the great Nolan 5150. What's up, brother? How we doing?
Doing pretty good.
Oh, we got a little cat shirt going on, huh?
Yeah.
Are you advertising that you are a pussy?
I'm down with that pussy.
Down for? I was telling Walty before we started recording yesterday, I was like, yeah, I want to be able to fucking put together like a recording studio where I can just like flip on and flip off and be able to do YouTube videos like he's doing. And I go, I'm thinking about building the studio in my room. I go, I don't know how that would go over with a chick the first time I bring a fucking chick over. Like, hopefully she'll want to turn the camera around.
Yeah, you definitely got to get that behind the door, and then that's something you introduce her to, like, maybe date 6 or 7. Just be like, so.
Yeah. So, by the way, I'm a fucking crazy person on the internet. To nobody, by the way. I'm doing this for nothing. Well, hopefully it won't be for nothing for forever. But yeah, I'm hoping that this MotoCast is going to help, because I know so much about moto. Like, I don't have to prepare at all. I can just watch the races, turn it on, and fucking go. And I've been saying since the beginning of this podcast, I think there's a sweet spot somewhere between motocross fans and libertarian politics, and we got to find that spot and expand it. So I'm hoping that, like, hey, we'll do these shows. I'm going to label them different so you don't have to, like, know that it's kind of the Joe Rogan things. If you don't want to listen to MMA, you don't have to. Here's the disclaimer.
Yeah.
If you're only here for MMA, here's the disclaimer so you can go to that. So I'm hoping that will, I would imagine that a lot of people started listening to Rogan for MMA and then just continued listening to every episode, or vice versa, weren't into MMA and then started listening to Rogan, and all of a sudden they're buying all the fucking UFC fights.
Yeah.
So
could work both
there's
ways.
A sweet spot. We're going to find it, or we're not.
There's always that option.
And we'll just keep screaming until we figure it's done. Until I go on, if, like, I'm hoping that Sam will have me on again. Until we, like, go and test the waters there, we're not really going to know, because we haven't done a lot to advertise ourselves at this point. I've considered, like, buying advertising spots on other podcasts, but I'd like to try and go on Sam's show again first. And I'm hoping that, like, again, the Moto show is going to help with that. Yeah. Because I'm doing something different. I'm grinding. We're doing, multiple podcasts. We're trying to hit people who aren't paying attention to politics and get them to, learn a little bit about the world around them. Because for me, I know as a motocross fan, I didn't give a shit. I was out to lunch. We thought we were fucking George Bush fans when we were 18 and 19. How, that's how out of it we were. Like, this guy who would easily throw us in prison for the rest of our lives. He was our guy. We actually had this massive campaign sign hung up in our house in Southern California just to piss people off, essentially, because we didn't know anything about Bush Cheney. We just knew that it pissed people off.
Yeah.
And that was what we were looking to do. And I've continued that. I had an Ammon Bundy sign in my driveway all through the entire election. I'm not voting for Ammon Bundy. I do think he would be a better governor than we've got now. But the real reason I had it out there is because it pissed people off. And that's what I like to do. Same thing with the black flag. Fuck you. Yeah. That's what it means. Yep. I think that's the best definition I could ever come up with for the black flag. It means fuck you.
100%.
Pin drop.
So do you?
All right.
Do you remember the story behind the Bush Cheney sign?
Yeah, dude, we went and stole it in my pickup.
Allegedly.
And you had to, like, lay on top of it because... Yeah, right, because that's government property, possibly. Right. But we allegedly knew somebody who stole a big sign, and it started flapping up and down while we were on the freeway. So somebody with a long beard who looks like a Viking and has a pussy on his shirt had to climb into the back of the pickup and lay down on the fucking thing. Did I get that right?
Yep. Yeah. Oh. That is correct.
My memory's not terrible.
Right on.
Pre-accident, dude, I'll fucking lay it out there for you. Post-accident, I've got an interview coming up with disability sometime this week that I've been told the date. I don't know how many times, and I don't know. I don't fucking know. It just doesn't work anymore. All right. Anyways, I considered like calling you up last week, early week, because we didn't do a podcast last week, and asking if we could do an emergency podcast about Maui. For people who don't know, I lived on Maui for a couple years. I've got family and friends there still. And I kind of just wanted to, I'd been hearing things right away. I heard some truly awful things that, unfortunately, at this point, I cannot say on this podcast. It's so horrible and so damaging to the people around them that if this happened in Detroit or Boise or fucking Billings, it wouldn't make a difference. There's so many people there. Nobody would have any idea who we're talking about, and it just wouldn't make a big deal. Lahaina, especially in Maui, is a really small, really tight community, and everybody knows that this happened, and I think it's up to them if they want it to be public or not. It's not up to me. So that being said, we got a lot of shit right away that was just really pissing me off. I was opening up, they were listing death count right away at 6. And, I knew it was higher than that because I knew people who knew that many people missing. And at that point, they weren't very hopeful that they were going to be found. It'd been 12 hours. Cell phone service was back working again. Emergency services kind of caught up a little bit. So at that point, it was like if we were going to hear from them, it was probably going to happen already. So we knew the death count was going to go way up. Right away, we got climate change. Right away. Within hours, climate change. So I'm going to start up my freaking iPad here, and we'll just look at a couple of these headlines, and then we'll go back in and look at this. Oh, I didn't put it on this part of the iPad. Let's go over here to the news. Let's go to the news. All right, so here's some of the stories that I just bookmarked. Hawaii Governor Josh Green says very real global warming caused conditions of deadly wildfire. Here's a different one. I'm just going to keep reading through these Alex Jones style. Unprecedented fire expert says climate change and native vegetation changes fueled explosive man-made fire or whatever the thing is. So it's your fault. It's people's fault. People are evil. They've changed the island. Whatever they've done, it's evil. It's causing global warming. Hawaii wildfire, climate change, and highly flammable grass behind devastation on Maui. Wildfires are exploding in unprecedented places due to climate change. Is Hawaii the future? Nowhere is immune. Maui devastating fires that have killed at least 6. And see, that's how early it is climate change. They're calling climate change back when it was 6 still. We're up over 100 now. This was the first day that it hit in the news. These are the first stories. Here's another one 5 days ago. Maui's wildfire has a climate link. Let's see. Here's more. Development, tourism, and climate change. How humans made Maui's catastrophic wildfire. Again, people are the problem. Climate change. How dangerous climate conditions fueled Maui's devastating wildfires. Maui's wildfire has a climate link. It's climate change causing the world's wildfires. How colonialism contributed to the Maui wildfires. That's actually not too terribly far off from the truth. We'll get into that one a little bit later, but here's some other ones that I couldn't save. Why climate change can't be blamed entirely for Maui's wildfire. That's 9 hours ago, so that should give you some foreshadowing and kind of the things that we were going to cover here today. News outlets went all in on Maui's coverage, but they missed a key part of the story. Again, Maui fires, not due to just climate change. So again, now we're starting to get it. All right, so let's go back and read a little, dig a little bit into it. Let's hear what they were saying on Democracy Now! So this is Amy Goodman. Can't stand
the
her.
fires in Hawaii. It killed at least 100 people and likely far more were.
I'm Amy Goodman. I actually died in the fire, and I am a zombie coming to you from MSNBC.
worse by the climate crisis, which has led to a rise in temperatures at the same time Hawaii is facing a drought. This was amplified by Hurricane
This is
Dora
yesterday,
Tuesday,
by the
when
way.
it passed
Yesterday.
south of Hawaii, hundreds of miles away, as a Category 4 storm quickly spread the fire. Climate change is also linked to stronger hurricanes. Last week, the
Stronger
scientist
hurricanes.
Michael Mann wrote on social media, "What we're seeing in Maui is a compound climate catastrophe, where an immediate factor, in this case unusually strong winds from the outer bands of a passing hurricane, interact with background state extreme drought that has been in place for a month." Michael Mann.
First off, it's a fucking class 4 hurricane. Hurricanes are classified by their fucking wind speed. You cannot have an abnormally high wind speed for a class 4 hurricane. It's just how fast a class 4 hurricane blows.
Yeah. One thing too that I find interesting, she mentioned drought and then talking about a hurricane. The two things that come to mind to me in a hurricane is wind and rain.
Well, this was offshore, so
yeah.
they weren't getting any of the rain bands from it. They were just technically getting the wind.
And then
the drought is something that's an issue, but as we'll learn later on throughout these videos and some of the articles that we're going to bring up, this is something that should have been expected. So let's continue.
Joins us now, Presidential Distinguished Professor and Director of the Penn Center for Science, Sustainability, and Media at the University of Pennsylvania. His upcoming book is Our Fragile Moment: How Lessons from Earth's Past Can Help Us Survive the Climate Crisis. Welcome back to Democracy Now!, Professor Mann.
All right, so we're going to bring on Michael Mann, noted climate catastrophist from the School of Climate Change, where he is the head of the climate change school. So this guy's not going to be biased at all, right?
And
like he's going to call balls and strikes on this for sure.
And they say we'll learn from our past and how accurate, what past are they talking about? Are they talking about the manipulated past, or are they talking about like the actual facts? That always makes you say that, and then I'm just like red flag.
Yeah. All right. Let's hear this asshole.
If you can start off by making that link, as many say, no, this is about weather.
Can you make it for us?
The climate crisis.
Tell us how bad it is.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. It's good to be with you, although it seems we never have good news to talk about. And the stories that, we've heard reported here are just so harrowing. And this is the climate crisis. It's here and now. It's
here and now,
us today in profound ways. And this is what, just the latest example. And there is clearly a climate component to what's happening here, a climate change component.
So now it's a component. They were laying it pretty heavy for a component, don't you think?
Yeah.
Like
they were saying it was the whole wheel.
Let's try and make a. Yeah, I was just gonna say let's make a motorcycle analogy here. Very good, dude. You read my fucking mind.
Component. Those winds that you talked about are governed by differences in pressure, in surface pressure. A hurricane is a low pressure system. In the subtropics, you have high pressures. And the difference between them,
pay attention to the landscape in the video
between the high and the low, is what determines the strength of those winds. And so we have higher and higher pressure over time in this region of the world associated with the changing atmospheric circulation associated with climate change.
That's the harbor where everybody surfed.
To the north,
they were just
we
showing
had
Bubba
a
Gumps.
storm, a rapidly
I lived on these
intensifying
beaches.
storm, and climate change encourages rapid intensification of these storms that gave us that low pressure to the south. That difference in pressure gave us those huge winds, and it interacted with an epic drought. And that drought is part of the climate story here as well, as we see.
All right. So he just described how a hurricane works, how pressure systems work. So this is kind of like just him spewing gobbledygook. Like, here, I'm going to fucking explain to you how how a weather system works and make it scary.
Yeah. I'm gonna
like you could
say
just
words
read that
and-
in any science book. This is how wind happens: high pressure, low pressure. Warm air rises, cool air rushes in to take its place. You get wind. That's all he just did right there. He just did this whole song and dance about how a hurricane works. But it's a freaking hurricane, man. You're in the South Pacific. They happen.
More and more high pressure in the summer over this region of the planet. We see less rainfall.
Less rainfall,
hotter temperatures
he says,
mean more evaporation of what soil moisture there is. And so we see this epic drought. The winds did sort of provide the spark.
It's epic now.
The downed power lines provided the spark.
Oh, so now we get power lines.
These fires to spread so quickly, to become so damaging, was in substantial part the huge amount of fuel there was in the form of dry materials, the tinderbox conditions that are there today. All of those things have been impacted by climate change. So we can't tell this story without talking about the climate crisis.
You just can't tell it without talking about the climate crisis.
Because there's not.
Isn't that great?
There's not, weather trends. There's not years of less rain than previous years. It's not just a natural.
And we're also not
cycle.
we're also not in the peak of a solar cycle that produces hotter temperatures and larger storms right now. That it's going to end in a couple years and it's going to start to get cold again. And then they'll start telling us, well, that's climate change. It's hot, then cold. It's changing. It's like your thermostat. The oil companies just dial it up and down.
Yeah, you and if you don't have an electric vehicle, you're a piece of shit, and you should buy an electric vehicle. And then,
all right. So he said a couple. Okay, yeah, so he said a couple things here. He said more storms. They said 16% of the island is in a massive drought. The island is only 727 square miles. So 16% is 116 miles. So we're talking about a tiny sliver of a tiny island. And like I said, I lived here. What they're not telling you and what they're not really going to show you is that the west side of Maui is essentially a fucking desert. You saw those pictures I sent you. It's a terraformed desert. They brought in palm trees and grass and they irrigate for lawns, but essentially the place is a desert. Here, we're looking at pictures right now. You've got a green area near some water, near some houses, and then the entire area all the way up to the mountains until you get into the rainforest is dry. They've got sagebrush out there. You get tumbleweeds in West Maui. Here's another one. You've got a subdivision that's nice and green. You've got dry hills. You've got dry flatlands. And as you get up to the top of the mountains, you get greenery. It's raining in those mountains all the time. But on the downslope of the island, all the way out to the beach, is fucking desert. They have fires all the time there. When I moved there, there was this big grass area where I ended up living after I got bounced out of every house that I rented. That there was a massive fire there the year before I moved there. That place was such a problem for homeless people that like a homeless guy got tied up and sodomized on a tree and left there. I don't know what he did, but the whole fire just ripped through there before I got there. And then all the grass was grown back within a year. There was a couple areas where it was still, being fixed up, but essentially it was right back again.
Yeah. That's one of
There's a couple more pictures. You can see the fire is in an area of just brush. It's not like this was a green, lush field that is all of a sudden brown this year. Here's up against the coastline, full-on terraforming project. You've got lawns, you've got trees, you got palm trees, you got fruit trees, and then behind it, you've got red rock and dry grass all the way up to the mountains. So another thing he brought up in that video was the rainfall. Well, let's do the hurricanes first. More hurricanes. Oh, there's more hurricanes. So I went on to ChatGPT because it's so hard to find freaking stats on the internet. They make it impossible for you to look this shit up because they don't want you to know the truth.
Yeah.
They just make this shit impossible. So I asked it, How many class 4 or 5 hurricanes have appeared off the coast of Maui in recent history? And we've got number 1, Hurricane Dot, 1959. Huh? Number 2, Hurricane Iowa, 1982. Oh, and it also disclaimer that these, were close. It doesn't mean they hit. Some of them did, some of them didn't. You know what I mean? It's near it. And you got 1959 to 1982. There's a massive gap. You know why I'm guessing that is? Because we didn't record these things very well back then. There were no satellites recording in the Pacific, in the South Pacific. So there were probably tons of hurricanes off the coast of Hawaii that never got recorded. And now we come into the 80s and 90s and they start recording them better. We've got satellites. Hey, look, there's a hurricane out there that not one person on this planet is ever going to come into contact with. How many of those happened between 1959 and 1982?
It's a very good question.
And we've got one in 92, 94, 06, 09, 15, 16, 18. So you could say that they're getting more intense, but I mean, we're talking 8 storms in 60 years. It's not like this is happening all the time. So this brings us even closer to what the fuck happened. They knew this was a possibility. They knew the storm was there. Let's see how much rain they've been getting. How dry is it really?
That's
it's so dry. Oh my God, it's so dry. It's so dry. So the average precipitation in Maui in August is 0.16. In July, it is 0.08. This month in July, they got 0.31 inches. So more than 3 times the average. So what happened? Where's this fucking drought you're telling us about?
Where's the epic drought?
An epic drought. The place gets on average 0.16 inches of rain this time of year. That is nothing. That is desert. Why do you think I was able to live outside on Maui? You think I was living out there in a monsoon every day? No, it hardly ever fucking rained. I only had to find a place to sleep in the rain a couple of times. And it was for like 2 days, and then the storm passes. They get nothing. It's a fucking desert. So what in the fuck happened? Let's keep going. What do we got next? I got pictures. Here's the New York Times. No single cause has been determined, but experts said one possibility was active power lines that fell in the wind, ignited the wildfire that ultimately consumed Lahaina. Brush fires were already burning. Okay, so here's where my info gets in, because I've got the real story on this. My uncle is a retired Maui fireman. He's active again right now because they need all hands on deck. He's got 3rd-degree burns on his hands, and he's still active. He's calling phones and shit while he's in the hospital. The story is there was a brush fire the day before. I don't know how that brush fire started. It could have been power lines. It could have been a cigarette outside. I'm not exactly sure where it was. I haven't gotten that deep of a story, but there was a brush fire. The fire department went out. They took care of it. They called it 100% contained. Later on, the winds fire up. It starts spreading again. But at the same time, so that's what they're saying. This fire, it just came back alive and spread again. But my uncle tells me that the way that their house burned down was that a power line fell behind his house and started a fire. So what the fuck were the power lines doing on? This was why I wanted to do an emergency podcast last week, because right away I went, what the fuck? Why was the power on? They knew there was a storm. They knew they had dry climate. They had a brush fire yesterday. Why the hell didn't they turn the power off on the entire west side of the island? They could have set up generators at schools and hospitals. The main hospital's not even on the west side of the island. It's in Kahului that didn't get hit at all. Maui only has just basic service doctors. There's no ER there. You have to go to Kahului. There's nothing there. So it's not like they were doing it for emergency services. All right. The fires on the island were stoked by a combination of low humidity and strong mountain winds. So here we got it again. It's, climate change. Multiple law firms have begun filing lawsuits on behalf of fire victims, claiming that Hawaiian Electric, the state's largest utility and parent company of the power provider on Maui, is at fault for having power equipment that could not withstand heavy winds and keeping power lines electrified despite warnings of high winds. At a news conference on Monday, Shelley Kimuru, a chief executive of Hawaiian Electric, said the company did not have a shutoff program and contended that cutting the power could have created problems for people using medical equipment that runs on electricity. She also said turning off the power would have required coordination with emergency workers. Holy shit. So we would have had to do extra work to cut off the power. We would have had to been proactive and got people on medical advices to the school or to the hospital. My God, that would have been just impossible. How could we ever have done that on a tiny island where everybody knows each other? The chief of fire, I guarantee you, knows the head of the electric company because they go surfing together or they go kayaking together or their kids go to school together. These people know each other. This is bullshit. These people are lying. They had no fucking clue what to do. They just left it on. Well, we don't know what to do, so we're going to do nothing. And now we have the largest disaster in 100 years in this country. Think about that. On an island covered with hotel, the most beautiful place in this country, completely fucking destroyed. This is a historic town. You can't rebuild it. All these buildings were old. Everything was old. There was an old prison there for pirates. Like, this is a fucking tragedy. And this is something I've been complaining about since the beginning of this show. Government-enforced monopolies create major fucking issues with electricity. No competition leads to this bullshit. If there was another option, they would have had to go, what do we do? Because if we do the wrong thing, we are going to lose every customer we have forever. But instead, they kept it on. Was there financial incentives to keep it on? Absolutely. There always is.
What kind of like tourist, hotels and tourist stuff was in that area?
Historic ones.
Yeah.
Historic ones. Not the fucking Marriott. They didn't burn. None of the big nice ones burned. The old ones. The Maui Lahaina Inn. The old Pioneer Inn. Like, the Pioneer is so fucking old. It's over 100 years old. You can't rebuild it. And you know who's going to get screwed on this? The fucking natives. Because most of the houses that burned down were houses from the natives. The white people all have enough money to live up on the hill. The natives have owned these homes in downtown Lahaina. They've been in their families for hundreds of years. Their entire families live in these homes together because they can't afford to live any other way. These people are going to get fucked. They are not going to have the resources to stay somewhere else while they build a new place. Big companies like BlackRock are going to come in and just buy up all this land and turn the fucking place into Disneyland. It's going to be just a nightmare. It's going to take 20 years to get this place back going. And for someone like you who's never seen it before, the place where I lived, where I don't even know how many miles I did on a skateboard in that town. How many?
Yeah.
But every place that I stepped foot in, and the bar that I worked in, I should have worn my fucking Moose's shirt tonight. I forgot. The bar I worked in, gone. It's fucking gone. You know, COVID took it out. The business itself went gone, but the building, gone. You know, there's so many artists on that street who own their own little kiosk where they have tons of artwork destroyed. Imagine, like, for somebody who spent their entire life taking pictures on the island or painting on the island, have everything they've done destroyed. I was sleeping on Baby Beach one night, which got destroyed. And I woke up in the morning and there was an elephant seal laying next to me. And I just thought, you know, cool. Like, that's pretty cool. A couple months later, I ran into an artist on the side of the beach who was painting. And I asked him what he was painting, what he did. And he said that he was into elephant seals, that he'd been, it wasn't elephants, monk seals, excuse me. I said elephants. It's a monk seal. He was into monk seals. And he'd only seen a few of them the entire time he lived there. And I got to wake up next to one morning. You can't do that anywhere else on earth. It just can't happen. You can't lay on the beach. And again, dude, think about this. Every place in this country that has a homeless problem exports their homeless to Hawaii. When they have too many problems with them, they just buy them a ticket and send them out. There are hundreds and hundreds of homeless people in that area. How many of them are going to be found and identified? They're just going to disappear from history.
Yeah. Identified?
Like they never existed.
Yeah, probably not. But
nobody knows they're there. They don't have any family. Nobody knows they're there. Nobody knows they're gone. Nobody knows to look for them. Just erased from this planet. It's fucking tragic. I know I've said it a few times, but it's fucking tragic. How much time do we have? 30 minutes. Let's read a little bit of this article, and then we'll go into a little bit of the history of Hawaii. Let's see, where do we want to start this? Hawaiian Electric was aware that a power shutoff was an effective strategy, documents show, but had not adopted it as part of its fire mitigation plans. According to the company and two former power energy officials interviewed by the Washington Post, nor in the face of predicted dangerous winds did it act on its own. Utility officials said, fearing uncertain consequences. And who are those consequences from? Investors, government officials. People who allow these people to have a monopoly over the people that they are supposed to serve. The decision to avoid shutting off power is reflective of the utility's struggles to bolster its aging and vulnerable infrastructure against wildfires, said Jennifer Porter, who lives in Lahaina and was a member of the Hawaii Public Utilities Commission until just 9 months ago. Why the fuck is not every pole on that island steel? Why is there one wooden pole on that island where wood cannot survive? Salt water and humidity destroys wood. Why the fuck haven't they put steel poles on that island? Why? Because it costs money. And, you know, they get enough of it. These people are told how much they can sell power for. Told. They don't, you know, in every other industry, in every other portion of the free market, sellers do not set prices. Buyers set prices. You can try and sell your bike for as much as you want. If nobody's willing to buy it, that's not the price. In this situation, they tell you what the price is, and you cannot take your dollars elsewhere. You either live off grid or you fucking deal with it.
Yep.
They were not as proactive as they should have been, Porter said about the Hawaiian Electric's fire prevention planning, adding that there had not been any real meaningful action to address some of those inadequacies in terms of wildfire. So they knew their infrastructure was aging and destroyed, and they didn't do anything about it. They just lectured you on climate change. And that brings us, you know, we should just have a segment on this show called Read Nick's Mail. So I got another piece of mail this week. Let's read Nick's mail. And we could have a really nice like stinger for it. Read Nick's Mail. We're here to help. Here's how your home compares. Efficient home, 1,400 kilowatts per hour. Average home, 2,100 kilowatts per hour. Your home, 2,200 kilowatts per hour. So you use 57% more electricity than efficient 1,000 to 2,000 square foot single family homes in your community. This costs you an extra $70 a month. Hey, this might be crazy for these people to hear, but I don't care. I am paying for comfort. It is 105 degrees outside. I have 6 people living in this house.
Yeah, you pay your bill. No complaints.
Fuck you. Look at my. Let me send you a black flag.
Dude, hey, you should fucking send black flags to all your neighbors in your little neighborhood.
If I could afford it, I would. If I had bought in Bitcoin 5 years ago or 10 years ago, I would absolutely do that. That would be fucking hilarious. Maybe I could get like little flags and
stickers,
just put it on all their cars.
Little stickers. Put them on all their mailboxes.
Yeah. And you know what? I was gonna cover this last week, and we'll get back to this letter in a second. But dude, we had a fucking nasty homeowners association in Southern California. They cost you a car.
Yes. Yes, they did.
I don't know, like, I kind of remember how this went down, but essentially you parked it in the wrong place for too many days while it was broke down.
Oh, no. It wasn't broke down.
No?
It was just,
Go ahead, tell the story.
It was just dilapidated.
Oh, it was just dilapidated. So anyways, they had the fucking thing towed, and they didn't tell you about it.
Yeah. I had to.
So you hung out for a week.
I had to report
thinking
it to
was
the cops.
Stolen, dealing with car. Yeah, and they finally called you and said, "Oh yeah, we've got it." They towed it,
Yep.
and by that time, it cost you more to get it out of Hawk than the fucking thing was worth.
Yep.
So you just had to leave it there and give it up.
Yeah.
I should have known better than to move into a place with another homeowners association. I just didn't. I kind of thought like, yeah, we were assholes and we probably deserved it. But now thinking back on it, we didn't.
Dude,
I do remember though they used to stick those. I don't know, dude. They used to stick those stickers to our door and our windows and shit, and you had to scrape them off with like razor blades.
Yeah.
That shit pissed me off. I do remember that we got one of those stickers off clean, and we super glued it to the head of the HOA's door. I don't know if you remember that.
I don't remember that. But
yeah, well, he deserved it.
But absolutely. So there's I feel like there's a separation there because there's one thing to have like noise complaints and whatever for a resident, but it's another thing to fuck with those residents' vehicles who are legally parked. And my vehicle was legally parked. I was a legal resident of that community. And just because they deemed it an eyesore or whatever the case may be, whatever, you know, and it wasn't the prettiest thing. It wasn't the prettiest thing, but it got me from A to B, got me to work.
That's a nebulous term. It's like stop resisting. I'm not resisting.
Yeah.
Well, now you're resisting more. Like that's how the cops do it. Stop resisting. I'm not resisting as you're getting your ass kicked in there. Now you're resisting more. Fucking beat the shit out of you. That's never happened to me. Anyways, then they go into earlier in the week. Oh, that's right. I was going to finish reading my mail. So what do they tell me to do? Here's some steps you can do. Put in a ceiling fan. That'll save you $10 a month, which doesn't make any sense to me. Ceiling fans move around air. They don't cool anything down. Consider switching to Energy Star windows. Oh, no problem. I'll just drop fucking 30 grand on brand new windows. That'll save me $10 a month. How long will that take to pay itself off? My entire fucking life? Discover Idaho Power's heating and cooling cash incentives. Oh, great. Let me put in a heat pump. That'll save me up to $3,000. When? How long's that going to take?
Yeah.
And remember, I had a plumber here a couple weeks ago, and I asked him about heat pumps, and he goes, oh, yeah, we don't even install those things anymore. We did a couple of them, and they're just a nightmare, and we get too many complaints, so we just stopped doing it. That's great. So I'll just go buy one of those. You know, I'll spend the money I got from workers' comp to like secure the rest of my life on new windows, not because I need new windows, but because I should be using new windows because of climate change. And then I'll put in a heat pump that doesn't work. That's a great. I'm sure if I went to my financial planner and told him I was going to do that, he would say, "Good move."
Yeah, solid choice for your future.
Yeah, solid. All right. I think we've gotten the picture. Government enforced monopolies, no competition equals bad energy service. Let's learn a little bit about the history of Hawaii. I knew a little bit of this stuff, but this is a pretty fucking good video. Let's watch.
1893, this local white...
I forgot. I have to preface this one. So, in the late 1700s, early 1800s, white people started moving to Hawaii. It was mostly British and Americans. They were missionaries. They were out there preaching the Lord. Hallelujah.
Praise the Lord.
And the natives liked them. They loved the Lord, and they were even flying their flags for a time, and everything was hunky dory. And then they had kids, and their kids became fucking godless heathens and decided to open businesses, and they started buying up all the land and growing sugarcane. So that's where we're at.
By 1893, this local white militia and their political allies were ready for a full-on takeover of the government, which at the time was headed by this woman, Queen Liliuokalani. The sugar missionaries were still a minority, and a full-on overthrow of the government would have been hard by themselves. But luckily for them, they had help. The American ambassador of Hawaii at the time.
Wait a minute. America's never instituted a coup in a foreign country. What are they talking about?
Helped coordinate the arrival of an American military ship and troops to show up on the shores of the island of Oahu into the capital city of Honolulu. Up until this point, the conflict in Hawaii was technically internal, meaning it was between the locals and the white missionaries who were technically locals because they were born there. But the moment the U.S. arrived to Honolulu to provide military backup for a government overthrow, it became a full-on military coup sponsored by a foreign power.
Which
a cardinal sin in international relations. Oh. But even still, the government backed the overthrow. The Queen was forced to give up her power, and they put this guy as the leader of the new Republic of Hawaii. His name was Sanford Dole. His family was huge in the sugar business.
There's a new taste in pineapple from Dole.
And now he was the leader of the country of Hawaii. The locals fought this, but peacefully.
Now Dole actually terraformed the island of Lanai, interestingly. The island of Lanai was a complete desert. It's right across from West Maui. You can see it from Lahaina. And they did a bunch of science out there, I think it was the 1800s, and found out that the island was about 200 feet too short to create its own rain. So they imported a bunch of cook pines that got up over 200 feet tall, and now the island makes its own rain. Human terraforming.
Wow.
Tested. Nearly every adult on the islands signed a petition condemning the takeover. Back in Washington, D.C., a debate began as to what to do with Hawaii now that a bunch of pro-American missionaries turned sugar warriors had grabbed power. Dole himself traveled to D.C. to lobby for the U.S. to take over Hawaii for themselves. But so did a group of local Hawaiians to oppose the American encroachment. The Queen, who was overthrown, wrote a letter demanding to be reinstated as the legitimate leader of the Kingdom of Hawaii. The United States was split on what to do until 1898, when the new president surrounded himself with leaders who kind of loved war and American expansion. And this is what sealed the fate.
I am a product of American expansionism and war. My uncle, great whatever, was Secretary of State William Seward, who went and bought Alaska. Just a little bit of colonialism in the family. Not a big deal.
Of Hawaii. All of these displays of vehement, peaceful protests by the Hawaiian people were trampled on by a superpower who had bigger guns and an insatiable desire for control. So one summer day in 1898, the U.S. showed up, and the flag of the Kingdom of Hawaii was taken down, and the U.S. flag was raised. Hawaii was now officially a possession of the United States of America. With the help of these sugar-loving missionaries, these islands had been plucked from their people and put in the hands of a growing superpower. But stealing land is one thing. The real theft is what happened next.
monsters.
At this
dude.
point, Hawaii was just a
People are
U.S. territory,
monsters.
not a state. But even still, the U.S. began a deep, widespread destruction of Hawaiian way of life. The Hawaiian language was banned in schools, and government and businesses were by law required to be conducted in English. The U.S. began developing land, often on sacred sites, and the history itself was censored to make it seem as if the Hawaiian people welcomed the U.S. without a fight. Much of the
They've got like white dudes standing at the flagpole and Hawaiian natives saluting for people who listening.
real history became inaccessible because it was only documented in the Hawaiian language, which was beginning to die. And then in 1959, Hawaii became the 50th state of the Union and quickly became the place we know today.
Yeah. Corporate America, McDonald's.
Meanwhile,
Spam,
Dole
surfing.
Food Company, the company who was perhaps helped the most by this land grab, has become a massive global corporation. By 1993, Hawaii was a full-on part of the United States. That year, President Bill Clinton came out with an apology.
Yeah, we're sorry we stole your land, but we're going to keep it.
Yeah. That was the most disgusting part that I early in that video. It said Hawaii was officially or
U.S. territory.
Possession of the United States of America, something to that effect.
Yeah.
Which is a
This would be a great
oxymoron.
opportunity. This would be a great opportunity to go, hey, you know what? We fucked up all those years ago. And we're against colonialism now because obviously, you know, the liberal industrial complex is fully against colonialism. So, you know, we could just go ahead, Joe Biden could go ahead and give the fucking country back to him. I think we should. I'm not quite as convinced on Alaska. I think we should probably keep that. Just because the culture is essentially American at this point. You don't have a lot of native culture up there. We could give them parts of it for sure. You say, here, you can have the parts of this back. I mean, there's so much resources up there. It's not like we're going to be losing anything by giving a little of it back. But this is going to be the fires. This is round 2, man. They're coming in. We've already got, here's some of the biggest landowners on the island. Mick Fleetwood, who out of this list, he's the one I have the least fucking beef with because he had a nice restaurant in downtown Lahaina. He used to do a lot of concerts up on the roof. It was a really cool place. Seemed like he was really like ingrained in the culture and in the lifestyle. Like I think he was probably about as close to local as a white man can get. There's a saying on the island, you may live here, but you're not local.
Yeah.
And that's kind of essentially what it is. You can get close, you know, my family's close to being locals, but really they're not. It's not their island.
Yeah.
But this is going to be the next land grab. We've got Owen Wilson, Oprah Winfrey, who's the biggest landowner on the island now, I think, except for possibly some sugarcane plantations.
Did you say
that are
Owen
still
Wilson?
around. Yeah, Owen Wilson, Jeff Bezos, Steven Tyler, Clint Eastwood, and then Larry Ellison owns all of Lanai now. Like 98% of Lanai. He owns the entire fucking island. So these guys and more of them are going to come in. They're going to buy all this land up on the cheap, and they're going to turn it into Disneyland.
Yeah.
It's going to be a freaking disaster. It's sad. You know? But again, like, you know, they could come out and say something.
Dude,
Let's go to Joe Biden. Let's see what Joe Biden's got to say.
Will you come talk about the Hawaii response, Mr. President?
No comment as he's smiling. That's our fucking president. The worst disaster in 100 years in this country. And he smiles and says no comment. That's what we get. What about, there's another big, famous person in this country who has a pretty big connection to Hawaii. Who is it? Oh, that's right. Our ex-president, fucking Obama, who is from Hawaii. What does he have to say on this? Well, it's tough to see some of the images coming out of Hawaii, a place that's so special to so many of us. Michelle and I are thinking of everyone who has lost a loved one or who has been turned upside down. If you'd like to help, you can do so here. Huh.
Link to a GoFundMe.
That's it. Link to a GoFundMe. And where's like, hey, me and Michelle are personally donating $1 million to the city of Lahaina today. Please try and match, let's see if we can match these donations in the next hour and really give these people some help. But no. A couple days later, we got this. With temperatures breaking records around the world this summer, the problem with global warming can seem overwhelming. Here's a reminder that progress is still possible, and it's critical to vote for those who support bold action to advance a clean energy future. Wow. You get one tweet, and then it's right back to lectures about climate change.
Yeah.
One fucking tweet. You know who did have something to say? This guy.
I would like to express my sympathy and warmest regards to the people of Hawaii, and specifically all of those who have been so gravely and irreparably hurt by the tragedy of the wildfires in Maui, something the likes of which have seldom been seen anywhere at any time. The death caused by this catastrophic event will be far worse than ever expected now that houses and cars in other areas are being inspected.
Homeless people.
The sad thing is, it should never have happened. Our government was not prepared, and very importantly, the aftermath is going very poorly, with the governor of the island wanting to do nothing but blame it on global warming and other things that just happened to pop into his head. When asked about it today, as he was getting into a car, perhaps coming home from the beach, where he has been spending a great deal of time.
I love the dig.
Crooked Joe Biden, the most incompetent president in the history of our country,
That's possible.
with a laugh and a smile,
Possibly
said
true.
he had no comment on the death and the tragedy. To say no comment is oftentimes fine, but to be smiling when you say it, especially against such a tragedy as this, is absolutely horrible and unacceptable. It is a disgraceful thing that Joe Biden refuses to help or comment on the tragedy in Maui, just as he refused to help or comment on the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, for a very, very long time. In any event, hopefully everyone will be able to pull together so that a horrible situation does not get even worse. To the families affected, I give you my love and sympathy. Nothing can ever replace your loved ones, but you will always have the memories and will feel their great love surrounding and embracing you. Together we will continue to carry their legacy forward, and I love you all very much. Thank you.
What a great video. It's no secret that I've been very fucking critical of a lot of things that Donald Trump does, but this is, he fucking nailed it, man. That's
100%.
It seems sincere. Do you not see why people love this guy compared to Obama, who's just going to have some aide type out a fucking
and Biden
bullshit tweet? Yeah.
That was
not doing anything.
He
nailed it.
He nailed it. That was the perfect
nailed
response.
It. The only criticism I have of it was about 5 days too late. I would have liked it if he would have done it. I guess it's kind of fitting that he waited to get more information, kind of like we did. We waited to get a little bit more information. I would have liked it if it was 5 days sooner and he said, hey, we're still figuring stuff out. But I think that same message could have been played 5 days ago.
Unless he was in the middle of an arraignment.
That's obviously true as well. Yeah. But I would have liked it if it was earlier. But again, dude, A+.
Yeah.
He fucking nailed it. He knocked it out of the park. That's exactly what you need to do. Exactly. Good job, Donald Trump. This is why he's going to get reelected. If everything, is on the up and up, dude's going to get reelected. Make no mistake about that. Oh, boy. Well, I was going to go into some other stuff, but this has went a little long. Why don't we end this on a little bit of a happy note? Did you listen to Richmond North of Richmond? What a fucking song. What'd you think?
I didn't listen to it. I was hoping we were going to play it. And
well, I guess we should. Fuck it. I was worried about the copyright shit on it, but you know what? Who gives a shit? All right, here we go.
I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay, so I can sit out here and waste my life away, drag back home and drown my troubles away. It's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me, people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is living in the new world with an whole soul. These rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control. Wanna know what you think, wanna know what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do, 'cause your dollar ain't shit, and it's taxed to no end, 'cause the rich men, north of Richmond. I wish politicians would look out for miners, and not just miners on an island somewhere. Lord, we got folks in the street, ain't got nothing to eat, and the obese milking welfare. Well, God, if you're 5'3" and you're 300 pounds, taxes ought not to pay for your bags of fudge rounds. Young men are putting themselves 6 feet in the ground, 'cause all this damn country does is keep on kicking them down. Lord, it's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me, people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is living in the new world with an whole soul. These rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control. Wanna know what you think, wanna know what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do, 'cause your dollar ain't shit, and it's taxed to no end, 'cause the rich men, north of Richmond. I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay.
$14.2 million views in fucking 7 days. Great fucking song.
yeah, I dug the gave me a real like kind of like Willie Nelson, John Wayne ish kind of combo country vibe.
Yeah, it what's the other guy? Fuck, I just went and saw him. Hank. You like Hank.
Fuck yeah.
Sounds a little bit like Hank.
Absolutely,
yeah. Richmond, north of Richmond, that's obviously Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's all right. So let's hear a little bit of this article just drove me nuts. Here's Rolling Stone. Right-wing influencers just found their favorite new country song. In Richmond for Richmond, a singing farmer in Virginia blasts high taxes and obese people on welfare and even appears to allude to Jeffrey Epstein. Oh my God.
Fat people on welfare?
This is Rolling Stone, dude. Yeah, dude, this is Rolling Stone.
Oh.
They are supposed to be for the working class. I mean, this is the liberal elites' music outlet. Like, they are supposed to be for the working man. That is a song for the every man in America. If you can't, like, understand why that was compelling to people, you're just gone. So let's read a little bit of this article. Right-wingers are losing their minds over a new country song that just appeared on streaming services, blah, 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 blah. Raw solo songs like I've Got to Get Sober, blah, 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 blah. John Rich, here we go. A look at the lyrics, however, may suggest another reason why Richmond of Richmond is so appealing to right-wing influencers. I guess that's us. I just said that we should give fucking Hawaii back to the natives, but I am obviously a right-wing influencer.
Obviously.
Yeah. Quote, Lord, we got folks in the street, ain't got nothing to eat, and the obese are milking welfare. He sings, well, God, if you're 5'3" and you're 300 pounds, taxes ought not pay for your bags of fudge rounds. Yeah, I completely fucking agree. Why is it that we are fucking giving people money? Why is it that you can go and use your EBT card at every fast food restaurant in America?
Yeah.
You couldn't use it at any bar I've ever worked at in this country. No fucking way. But all these big corporations that have big tie-ins with the government all collect EBT. It's essentially just giving tax money to McDonald's. Yeah. Why don't we just cut them a check and then say, give out free food? They could probably make more money that way. The real head turner, though, is an apparent allusion to Jeffrey Epstein's Caribbean island, where billionaire and convicted sex offender allegedly introduced underage girls to powerful associates.
I'm pretty sure that's a fact.
So they're
now,
throwing,
right?
Yeah. So they're throwing like cover to Jeffrey Epstein to throw shade on this ex-factory worker who is fed up with the way his country's being ran. That's a great look, Rolling Stone. Keep that one up. I'm sure your numbers are going to climb and climb and climb. Isn't that wild? They make it seem like there was nothing going on there. What's he alluding to? I couldn't believe that. That drove me nuts. Rolling Stone put out another article this week that said people already don't care about Try That in a Small Town. And fuck that song. Straight up, fuck that song. Fuck that guy. I don't like Jason Aldean. He's not a real person. He's a fucking corporate creation. I can tell you right now why that song does not hold a candle to this one, and it's not going to have the same effect as this one. This is going to last. This guy's got a career now. I'll tell you exactly why. This is from Wikipedia. Try That in a Small Town. Try That in a Small Town is a song written by Kalani Lovelace, Neil Thrasher, Tolly Kennedy, and Kurt Allison, and recorded by American country music singer Jason Aldean. He didn't write that fucking song. That song was created in a boardroom. They went, how can we get somebody to sing about BLM being bad in a way that we can create buzz without going too far?
It was created.
That's exactly how that song was created.
It was created by AI.
I went on a... maybe these people were created by AI. I went on a whole tirade. They were playing the song at John's wedding, and I went on a whole tirade about it. Like 5 people are standing around me. I went through that exact same rant, and they were like, yeah, fuck this guy. That's bullshit. And the other part of the rant is, this is fucking, you're 2.5 years late, dude.
Yeah.
Where were you in the summer when it was happening? He didn't speak up against any of this shit. Where the fuck were you? This is like when Jon Stewart did his COVID lab leak joke on Colbert. Nobody gave a shit because it was too fucking late. Your moment has passed. All the people that were saying that, like myself early on, who wrote an article about this in early 2019, we all got demonized for it for 2 years, but by the time he got up there, it was okay. Fuck that. Just because you're piling on does not mean you're one of the good guys. You are the fucking enemy. Jason Aldean, fuck you, man. I keep telling myself I'm going to try to stop using the F word on this show so much because it's a sign of poor vocabulary.
Hey, fuck that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think it's a sign of poor vocabulary, and it bugs me when I turn this on and go to a random place and that's the only word I can come up with.
Hey.
This episode was a little hard to, like, this fucking pissed me off.
Yeah.
This Maui thing really got under my skin. You know, it was hard for me to keep it together at certain points in this podcast because I lost it pretty good hearing some of the stories that I heard early on. So I'm happy that I kept it together. I don't want to be some asshole who comes up and starts crying about, shit that you heard. But
brother,
like this this one hit harm.
I feel your passion about all this through you. Like you said, I've never even fucking been to Hawaii, but me and you have spent a lot of time together. I consider you a brother, and shit that affects you affects me. Maybe not to the same degree, but I feel it.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I feel the same way. I always stand up. I've got a good rant. You'll have to listen to the first part of the Motocast next week because, oh boy, am I going to rip into this fat slob Steve Mathis on behalf of Walty and myself, but mostly Walty. I'm going to rip this guy a new one. And on that, we're fucking out of here. Go subscribe to our YouTube channel already.
Do it.
Just do it.